My name is Emily, I'm 44 years old. I'd like everyone to listen as I share a story about the most tumultuous time in my life. When I was 25, I married a businessman I met through a mutual friend. After getting married, I wanted to be a homemaker, but the recession didn't allow that. I continued working at the salon I'd been at for years, skillfully using maternity and childcare leave while raising my daughter, Sophie. Up to this point, it was a pretty ordinary family. Well, maybe it was a bit tough back then since everything was a first experience for me. But day after day, my child was adorable, and I loved my husband. We didn't have any in-law issues. In fact, my mother-in-law and father-in-law adored our daughter and helped with childcare, so I never felt it was too hard. I thought I was surrounded by many kind people, leading a peaceful life. By the time my child turned 10, the honeymoon phase had faded, and we had become a very settled couple. Sure, there was a bit of sadness in the changes. I'll admit that. But I thought every family went through the same thing. If the timing was right, my husband would pick me up after work, and he was still kind. I never felt the love had cooled, so I had no worries. But then, unexpectedly, one day, my husband had a rare day off, so I borrowed the car to go shopping. I got into the driver's seat and adjusted the side mirror since my husband's position made it hard to see. In that brief moment, something shiny caught my eye. There was something sparkling on the floor. What is that? I thought as I picked it up. It was an earring. A dangling type, clearly for women. By the way, I don't have pierced ears. I'm allergic to metal, so I can't wear earrings either. So, whose is this? My mind was filled with question marks. The quickest conclusion my mind jumped to was the word affair. No way, such a typical way to get caught. I thought, and confidently handed the earring to my husband, saying, I found this in the car. For a moment, my husband looked shocked. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh. I gave a ride to a colleague the other day. That's it. What was that reaction? He definitely almost said, it's mine, right? That can't be true, right? I was torn about whether to confront him. I felt uneasy and wanted to dispel my bad imagination. But our daughter was right there. I didn't want to confirm my husband's affair and hurt her. So, I let it go at that moment. A little time passed. One night, it was raining heavily, and my husband called to say, I got called to an after-work social. I won't be able to come home tonight. In this rain? Are you okay? Don't catch a cold, I said. I couldn't tell him not to go, and I was genuinely worried about him. He's prone to catching colds, so going out on such a night must have been due to a pressing job. I'm sure he wanted to decline. I'll be fine, thank you, he said. Before he could finish, I heard a high-pitched, sweet voice from the other end of the line. Ryan, are you still on the phone? I instinctively asked, what? Hey, I'm on the phone. My husband said, trying to explain to me while shushing the other person. What was that? Someone just called you by your first name? Oh, it's just a client who's had too much to drink. You know how some bosses like to call people by their first names. It's nothing. It sounded like an excuse. Sure, there's a manager at another store who also calls me Emily. There are definitely some bosses who call everyone by their first name, regardless of gender. But something about the tone of the voice made me suspicious. I couldn't help but say, Afraid of being questioned further, my husband quickly said, it's really nothing. I have to go to a client dinner now. Bye. And hastily hung up the phone. Finding that earring last time, now this, it was starting to smell like an affair. I was shocked, but without solid proof, it didn't feel real. I was just left with this growing, vague suspicion. The next morning, my husband came home and started talking about the client dinner without me even asking. But the more he talked, the more he repeated phrases like, they were pushy, they were really drunk, and, I just wanted to come home. The common theme was that he hinted, I didn't really want to go. That sounded suspicious. So, you're not having an affair, are you? I tried to laugh it off with, no way, right, but I went silent when I saw my husband's face. He was pale. I had never seen anyone look so pale before. It was to the point where I thought, people really can turn that pale. Oh, no, no, no. There's no way I'd do that. Not me. His words didn't match his expression. While you can fake a facial expression, you can't fake being that pale. This was it. What a horrible joke I made. I really messed up. I turned my back on him to hide the tears welling up in my eyes. Hey, why don't you go take a bath? It's your day off, you should relax. I said, trying to sound as cheerful as possible as I left the room to cry alone. Up until now, his poor excuses didn't make it seem real. After all, there's no proof, I thought, not feeling too anxious. But now, this was it. No solid evidence still. Nothing had changed. But his reaction was undeniable. I didn't even need to rely on my instincts as a wife. What should I do now? Find proof and get a divorce? But what about our daughter? Raise her by myself? Despite everything, I still love him. I couldn't make up my mind, so I decided to think deeply about what I really wanted. Before I found an answer, my daughter's summer vacation began. I thought it would be a typical summer, but it wasn't. My husband kept insisting on taking our daughter to his parents' house. He usually found it stressful to visit his own parents and would often say, "We can go anytime, it's just a town over." And didn't want to go back often. Plus, my work was busy during the summer vacation. A visit to his parents' house would mean staying over for several days. Even though it was close, the time our daughter could spend with her grandparents was limited. But during this time, I couldn't take long vacations. Does he know I can't go with them? As I thought about it, I remembered that this summer was already different from the others. Right. My husband is having an affair. Maybe he's using this trip as an excuse for something. If I'm lucky, I might get some proof of his infidelity. Thinking I needed evidence to make a decision, I decided to let my husband and daughter go on the trip alone. The day of the trip. My husband was unusually cheerful as he said, "We're off," and drove off with our daughter to his parents' house. Something was definitely off. He usually acted like it was a chore. But I had no idea what was actually happening, and the distance to his parents' house made it difficult to get any evidence. After they left, I searched the house but found nothing. As expected, it wasn't going to be that easy. I kept in touch with my daughter using the voice message function on her GPS device. But I was starting to think I should just give up on finding evidence. The next day, despite staying up all night searching for clues and finding nothing, I went to work exhausted. Everyone was worried about me, but I just said it was too hot to sleep and laughed it off. I exchanged messages with my daughter during breaks, thinking it would be another uneventful day. But then I noticed something strange. My daughter, who should have been at her grandparents' house, was on the move according to the GPS. The GPS showed she was moving. Sure, they might go out somewhere, but my daughter was heading towards a street lined with bars. I had a bad feeling. I quickly told my manager, Mark, that I was feeling under the weather and asked to leave work early. By then, the GPS had stopped at a certain place in the downtown area. The sign said Amore Club Love and Me, a love hotel. My daughter was at a hotel with her GPS? What? I was confused. What if she was involved in some incident? Since she hadn't responded to my messages, I frantically called my in-laws. Hello? I'm sorry to bother you, but is my daughter there? I didn't know if it was my mother-in-law, father-in-law, or husband who answered. Emily? Sophie went out with my son just a while ago. What's the matter? It was my father-in-law. Hearing that my husband took our daughter out, I felt a wave of relief. She was safe. But my relief was short-lived as a question popped into my head. Wait, what? Why is my husband at a hotel with our daughter? Could this be the proof I had been searching for all night? Just then, I got a message from my daughter on the GPS. I told my father-in-law, "Can I call you back later?" and hung up, quickly responding to my daughter. What are you doing right now? I'm waiting for Dad in the car. I double-checked the GPS location to make sure I wasn't mistaken. It was definitely a hotel. No matter how many times I checked, it was a hotel. Did he leave her in the car while he went into the hotel? I felt a rush of anger. More than finding solid evidence of his affair, I couldn't forgive him for taking our daughter to such a place. My father-in-law said my husband had taken her out to play. He was using our daughter as a cover. What a foolish thing to do. This definitely calls for some, proper punishment. I replied to my daughter, "Mom is coming over there now." Then I called my father-in-law back and explained everything. Since my father-in-law dotes on our daughter, he immediately understood the situation when I mentioned, "It seems my husband is at a hotel with Sophie." He was furious, yelling, "What is he doing?" If our daughter understood the implications of her father being at a hotel with another woman, she would be devastated. We decided to get her out of there before she realized anything. Fortunately, the hotel was near the station, so I took the train while my in-laws drove separately to the location. When I arrived at the hotel's parking lot, our car was indeed there. My daughter, knowing we were coming, was waving innocently from inside the car. I hurriedly opened the car with the spare key and hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry for leaving you alone in a place like this." I wasn't alone, but Dad is taking so long. Saying that, my daughter pouted, puffing out her cheeks. Taking her out for a fun outing and leaving her in the parking lot, really? That's just terrible. Mom will take care of this. I silently promised my daughter, though I didn't say it out loud. I persuaded her to go back home with her grandparents. I wanted to get her away from that place as quickly as possible, and my in-laws were quick to help. Then I got into the driver's seat of my husband's car and waited. Of course, just waiting wasn't satisfying enough. Guessing he was in the middle of something, I decided to call him and disrupt him. "Hello, darling?" I used an exaggeratedly casual tone to gauge his reaction. "Hey. I'm driving right now. Don't call me out of the blue, call me later." "No, you're not. Your car is right here." "What are you driving, exactly?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Okay, sure, got it. Your parents will be picking you up soon, just so you know." What? It was, of course, a lie. His parents had just left. I wanted to end his fun quickly, so I thought this was the best way. After I hung up, my husband hurriedly appeared in the parking lot a few minutes later. A woman with messy hair was following him, clearly upset. They seemed to be arguing. Of course. They probably planned to stay there for at least 3 hours. My call must have forced them to cut it short and leave abruptly. No, definitely. As he approached the car, his shirt buttons were all mismatched. Is he planning to meet his parents like that? Our daughter would be shocked too. The woman was furious, and it seemed like they would break up over this. And, was it just me, or did she look a bit like a younger version of me? Interesting. Even for an affair, he chose someone who looks similar to me. Thinking about everything made me happy, so I waited in the car, smiling broadly, for my husband to notice me. When he finally saw me, his eyes widened and he started gaping like a fish out of water. "Darling, I came to pick you up," I said, waving cheerfully as I rolled down the window. It was amusing to see him reflexively wave back in a daze. Just like a dog that sits or drools when you wave your hand. Pavlov's dog, a conditioned reflex. His companion, the woman beside him, had turned from red with anger to pale and fled the scene. Poor thing, abandoned just like that. What? Huh? What the? My husband stammered, pointing at me with a bewildered expression. I didn't answer, just kept smiling. He didn't react even as I started the car. Well, that means he has no objections. All right, walk back home. I'll be there first, I said, and drove off. A man who leaves his daughter alone in a parking lot deserves the same treatment. Serves him right. Learn your lesson. In the rearview mirror, I saw him chasing the car, but I didn't slow down. The woman seemed to have left before me, so there was no one to help him now. Let's see how he likes walking home. I found the whole situation amusing and chuckled to myself as I drove to my in-laws' house. When I arrived, my mother-in-law was playing with my daughter. My father-in-law looked furious, practically radiating anger. The atmosphere was tense as my husband finally returned home. Although the hotel was only about 2 hours away on foot, it had taken him 5 hours. It must have been hard for him to face us. I'm home. My father-in-law glared fiercely at my husband as he timidly stepped into the room. Who are you? Don't come in here without permission. Get out. Wait, Dad. Please, let me explain. But my father-in-law grabbed his arm so hard I thought it might come off and dragged him out to the entrance. I'm so glad my father-in-law is here. My husband had always said his dad was scary when angry, so I knew this would be more effective than me getting mad. Hand over the car keys, my father-in-law demanded, and my husband, not fully understanding what was happening, handed over the keys. Once he had them, my father-in-law started questioning him. Where were you after leaving our daughter alone? I'm asking where you were. At a hotel. My husband couldn't even stand up, his voice getting smaller. I knew it. Who were you with? You weren't alone, were you? Speak up. If you lie, you'll spend the night outside. My father-in-law is someone who gets things done if he says he will. He'd taken the keys so my husband couldn't escape. Realizing the gravity of the situation, my husband started sweating. Cold sweat. She's a temp from my company. He muttered, hanging his head. Speak clearly. If I have to drag every detail out of you, you'll be spending the night outside, my father-in-law threatened. How scary, though as I watched from behind with a smile. Tears welling up, my husband started speaking in broken sentences. He confessed that he initially approached the temp because he thought she was cute and just wanted to chat a bit. But she was surprisingly enthusiastic, and before he knew it, they were having an affair. He admitted that being admired by a younger woman made him feel good and he got carried away. Personally, I found the phrase, the temp was cute, somewhat comforting. I thought she looked a bit like me, so in a way, it felt like a backhanded compliment. But that didn't mean I was going to forgive him. I had made up my mind about what I wanted to do. I understand. Call her right now and end it. Cornered by my father-in-law, my husband called the woman as instructed. It's me. I'm sorry about today. As soon as the call connected, a furious voice shouted. I don't want anything to do with you, followed by the sound of the call being disconnected. Well, it's over now. My husband said, though it seemed more like she had dumped him. Too bad, dear. You didn't end it. That's not sincerity. You're such a spineless man. My father-in-law scolded, making my husband shrink even more. Do you even feel bad for Emily and Sophie? He yelled. Of course I do, my husband finally answered loudly. I'd like to strip him of his clothes and throw him out, but Emily, what do you want to do? Caught off guard by the question, I thought for a moment. The truth is, I don't want to break up, or rather, I don't want to let him go. I believe my daughter and I could live happily on our own, but I still love him. The next thought was that I didn't want him to ever cheat again. That was all. Divorce. As soon as I whispered that, my husband visibly flinched. Please. I beg you. Please, don't divorce me. I was wrong. Betraying you and Sophie was the worst thing I've done. Yeah, that's true. Even though he's stating the obvious, a mischievous thought crossed my mind. When I remained silent, my husband repeatedly apologized, bowing his head to the floor and saying, I'm sorry. I couldn't see his face, but from his tone, it was clear he was crying. I'll never cheat again, he sobbed, prompting me to finally respond. Sign the divorce papers. I'll keep them. Depending on your behavior, I'll submit them immediately. My husband looked up quickly. Maybe he felt he was barely holding on. Also, no more allowance. You'll only get lunch money. And you will do the housework. His face, which had brightened for a moment, darkened again. And I want a GPS tracker on your phone, and you're not allowed to go out alone with Sophie. Either I or your father must accompany you. I continued. If I ask you to go shopping, you go immediately. And you must fulfill all my requests. Oh, and by housework, I mean everything from taking out the trash in the morning to shopping, cleaning, making dinner. And doing the laundry for the next day, from morning till night. In short, he would be our personal servant. There would be no dignity left for him as a husband or father. If you agree to that, I won't divorce you. But if I get upset, all bets are off. I knew I was being harsh. I was essentially telling him to keep me happy at all times. But he was the one who messed up. He deserved at least this much. If he's busy, he won't have time or energy to cheat. My husband, looking like he was about to cry, agreed, "That's fine." My father-in-law immediately interjected, "Not that's fine, you should be saying, 'Thank you for giving me this chance.'" As instructed, my husband repeated his words. He was now completely under control. That was 6 years ago. To this day, I keep the divorce papers locked away in a drawer where he can't reach them. There hasn't been any sign of infidelity from him since. It seems natural now rather than him constantly checking my mood. And for good reason. Our daughter, now a teenager, still sarcastically reminds him that behavior was totally unacceptable back then. It seems that being disliked by our daughter was far more painful for him than being scolded by me or his father. As our daughter has grown, I've noticed my husband striving to be a better partner. Thanks to that, I'm also happy. Don't get me wrong, I never forgave him for that one mistake. Choosing not to divorce him back then was about protecting my own happiness. My ultimate goal was for our family of 3 to live happily together. Even if he had wanted a divorce, my decision would have been the same. I would have fought to keep him, even against his will. But for as long as he feared those divorce papers, I knew we still loved each other. Now, he values our family genuinely, without feeling tied down. And that's why this was the most tumultuous time in my life. Looking at my family now, I can confidently say it will never happen again. As proof, I am very happy now. To everyone listening to this story, I want to say, don't think you can easily break the family I've built. Even if the world turns upside down, I'll never let go of my husband.